Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to A Gathering Place, brought to you by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And today's topic is the dangers of vaping, how it's impacting our community. And we have a mother, educator, and also an expert regarding vaping and what's going on in South Carolina and what's going on in our nation. I want to welcome everyone to A Gathering Place across our YouTube channel, Facebook, and Instagram, and LinkedIn also. I forgot we're on LinkedIn. So welcome those from LinkedIn, welcome those from Facebook. And let's get started with today's show with our special guest, Marlisha Robinson. Good evening or good afternoon, Marlisha. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us. And next we'll have our expert. He's a retired senior law enforcement officer. Is that correct, Rich? Did I say it that
that's
way?
Perfect.
All right. Very good. Very good. He's going to be our expert, and hopefully our educator will be able to join us. Y'all, this is casual. This is a community-driven show that we just bring in folks to talk about topics that are impacting our community. So we have Rich with us today, the expert regarding vaping and what's going on within the community. Not only our community, it's Gullah Geechee folks, but the broader community, because if it impacts one, it impacts all. And of course, Miss Marlisha Robinson, who's going to share with us some personal perspective, personal stories regarding vaping our community. And now, y'all, last week, was the first time we did our show. Quite a while. So I know I have an opening. I got to get to that opening, y'all, so I can get to our opening and we could be right back after.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Hemingway, and welcome to A Gathering Place. I said I'm stepping back because we have young voices who want to be heard and they're moving on something.
Branding is really important to you and your business.
Even a basic type of technology, you learn it all.
And people are
good question.
And we're back. Welcome back, folks. And we wanted to hear the personal community stories first, and we'll bring Rich back in about 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll be able to get those expert answers that we all want to hear about. But before we hear from the expert, we want to hear the stories that we all live with. We want to hear those personal stories and understand how this impacts our communities, how it impacts families. And what we're seeing out here as community. Marlisha, you and I, we have many conversations in the work that we do, and we've talked about this over the last couple of years, just kind of like seeing things happening, just kind of bouncing some ideas off of each other. And I said, why don't you come on? I'm having this expert come on. Why don't you come on and let's hear some personal stories, community stories about what's happening out here. So, first, what would you like to get started with? What are you seeing in your community when it comes to vaping? Because from my point of view, unfortunately, a lot of it is marketed towards our youth with the colorful vaping, stuff, and it's really impacting our youth. But what are you seeing out there?
Yes, I actually recently was watching a documentary on one of the companies who intentionally marketed to the youth. And it's they made the products look more like electronic devices, something that can be disguised as a USB, something a parent would think is a flash drive, so it's easy for them to get it in the schools. They made sure there was little vapor, they had the flavors, anything that's attractive to young people, and that was their target. And this particular company made, I believe it was somewhere around $2 billion just off of teens and young adults. And it's harmful to me because it's like, we know the damage in cigarettes, and these vapes are worse than that. One vape is the equivalent of a whole pack of cigarettes. So you have these 13 to 14-year-old children addicted to it, and it's highly more addictive than the actual cigarette itself. And I just feel like in America, we already had this issue at the lawsuit to the tobacco companies, and they won, but yet and still now we have a new product is 100 times worse. I'm seeing a lot of kids wanting to vape as if they have these high demand jobs and career that's so stressful in their life, and they need that to function. They needed to calm their nerve. They have anxiety. They have depression, and it's just one of those things. It's just sad to watch, because I'm watching, as a community leader who works with the youth a lot, I'm seeing the depression. I'm watching them go from these joyful kids who's excited about their music or just going out hanging with each other to now everyone's grumpy, everyone's upset, it's sad to watch. And I would say just recently, right after you asked me to be on the show, I was looking at some old videos of my son, my youngest. He's getting ready to turn 18. And I'm showing him the videos and I'm laughing, and I notice he has this look in his face and he says, I don't want to see that. I'm not that kid anymore. And at first I thought he meant because he's about to be 18, but I realized he's recognizing in himself he's not as happy anymore. He's not happy to be alive. My son was always on 10, he's just very joyful, very playful, always laughing and joking. And now he's just like this cool, calm kid. But I do see some sadness in him. And that's when I realized, I said, are you vaping? Because we had an issue some years ago. And he told me, I was, but I don't do it like that. But it's enough to really change his entire personality. And that's what hurts the most, especially when it's in your own home.
Do you, are you aware that there are chemicals in the vaping product that create nicotine, that create addiction? And if you are aware, you said yes. Why are you aware? Did you do some research? Are you just assuming it's in there? Are you reading the product? How did you become aware that there are chemicals in these products?
I'm a documentary groupie. I like to watch documentaries. So I happened to see that some years ago when they were talking about it. And like I mentioned earlier, it was a particular company that I can't really remember their name, but it was spearheaded by some young people. And that was their whole thing. And I'm just listening to what they're saying, the FDA and other Congress people who are trying to get this product banned. And it's just out of control. So that's how I became aware of it. When I first heard of vaping, I do remember it being marketed as something more safe for the environment because of the smoke. And they only focused on that. They didn't tell you, I learned from somewhere else down the line, that it's more harmful than the cigarette, because you get addicted faster, and it's just the metals in it and all the other chemicals that have no business being in it is still there. So it's not a healthier choice. It just has less smoke and the smell of it, of course. But other than that, that's how I found out, just from TV.
So this sounds like with your son, and thank you for sharing this with us regarding your son. This sounds as if this has been an ongoing issue with him, with the vaping.
I didn't know that it was until recently.
Okay.
I thought we were past that.
So it was something
I'm dealing with now.
And okay, you're dealing with it now. And what exactly are you looking for in dealing it? What kind of help are you looking for in dealing with it?
My son is he likes one-on-one relationships, so really looking for a mentor or someone who can really help him understand what's going on with his body and with these products, and then also seeing the physician, because I actually mentioned it to his general physician some years ago, and at that time, like I said, it was just something he tried, and that was it as far as I knew. But even now, it's not an everyday thing with him. I check his room, so I don't always see it, but it's just one of those things. His whole personality has changed, so I just really would like for himself to learn more about the products, so he can make a better decision on getting more healthier. Finding other outlets, because if you are depressed, if you are stressed out, there's other things that we can do to alleviate that. So
I can hear the pain in your voice regarding this with your son. Does your son, so you had this conversation with him recently, but was previously with him in vaping, was he aware of the harm of vaping at that time? So he had no clue. He just thought you mentioned it as you were talking, that you thought it was less harmful than cigarettes. It was not a
Yes.
product that would cause harm like cigarettes. Yeah.
Yes.
So you were not overly concerned about it. You think, okay, he's not doing cigarettes,
Yeah.
right? This is less harmful. And so let me tell you a little bit of my story why I'm a bit passionate about vaping, and people think it's not an odd subject, but it is if you're not aware. Both of my parents passed from lung cancer. They both smoked,
Mm-hmm.
and they started as teenagers. Um, and, and and honestly, it was a miracle that they lived as long as they did. I think my dad probably smoked 72 years because his was when he went into the military, and they call it PTSD now, but he was in the military when they call it the shakes, right? And they would give liquor and cigarettes to young soldiers to deal with the war, the impact of being in the military. And then my mother, I don't know exactly what age, but at the time when they were growing up, cigarettes, kind of like vaping now, was not seen as harmful. And then, of course, decades later, you had the big lawsuits and stuff about cigarettes, tobacco, that changed. But I don't think the market itself changed in the sense that we make a lot of money off of people, that nicotine getting people, hooked on to these things.
Yeah.
So I'm passionate about it because it just reminds me of the stories of my parents. I was not alive when they were teenagers. My parents were in their 30s when they had me. But just talking to them and seeing the damage from cigarettes, and that they ultimately died of lung cancer. And to think as teenagers, if they had had maybe greater knowledge, that may have played a different part. The 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 sad thing, I guess, about it, but the good is sad thing, and tragic part of it is that none of my parents' children smoke, and I don't think any of the grandchildren smoke. And quite frankly, I don't know about the vaping because most of them live out of state. I think they all live out of state from South Carolina, so I don't see them as often, but I never see them vaping. But we had to learn that lesson because of the tragedy of our parents and what they did. So it's very, very personal to me, vaping, because I see it and I hear people talking about it, and I see people tend to be younger than me. It's a generational thing too. But adults use vaping products also. And I just think about the harm that's being done. And Rich has been on the show before, and me working and learning from other folks, I just see it repeating. The cycle is repeating itself. But as you said, and I posted some pictures and I'll put those up very quickly, they're bright. They got, look at that rainbow candy flavor.
Yeah.
It's very deliberate, directed towards teenagers, the marketing of these harmful vaping products. And what else do we need to know? So I asked you about what help you're looking. That's a very personal, someone that can help maybe mentor your son and relate to that. But were you aware that there are bills that they're trying to pass now to limit access? I'll put it, and those are my words. We're going to have the expert on to explain this. All right. And, okay. So what do you think you could do as a community member or as a mother to maybe help that bill get passed, or just even express your concern? Is that something you would be interested in?
Yeah, I would like to, even if I couldn't bring, someone to speak in personal with our group, we would do that. We have our Juneteenth scholarship pageant. We have a lot of young adults a part of that. Maybe there's something we can incorporate, with that programming, or just get that setting with those kids. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. We could talk about that offline in more details. So to move it a little bit from your son, and then we'll bring Rich in. What do you see in the community? I've heard about the schools are having a real hard time controlling access to vaping because unfortunately too many of our schools have metal detectors in the school for security and safety reasons, and that plays a part in identifying vaping products, right? But I think but what do you see happening in the community that the community, the harm to the community, and what is the community to fight back? Because what I'm hearing in the schools, to go back that very quickly, I'm thinking stream of consciously, is that it's hard for them to detect those
Yeah.
vaping products because a lot of them are made out of mostly plastic, right? And that
Yeah.
plastic in of itself is bringing chemicals into the picture along with the
Yeah.
vaping product
Yeah.
itself. Yeah. So what are you hearing out there in the community, and what's the community
It's the same
doing?
thing, and that's really how it came about. With our organization, we just had some parents, and with Miss Kristen, being a teacher at the time, a former teacher, she saw some of the same things, and that's really how we got together. We're discussing the children, and we're watching them become depressed. And I'm I like sweaters and hoodies and everything, and I wear them all the time. And we notice with these children, that's also a sign of depression when they always got the hood on, covering their head. And so she kind of taught me some things, and they don't want to be seen, or just kind of to themselves, or a group of them, but they're not talking, they're not laughing, they're just there, almost like this zombie thing, and they kind of feed off of each other's energy. And that's just something we were seeing between that. And my son is homeschooled, and I have a group of them, and it's no different than what's happening in the public school system. So we're like, how is this? What is going on? So we don't know if it's a social media thing, or we just really don't know how their lives are so parallel when they don't have anything to do with each other. But it's mostly starting with these kids being very withdrawn and not interested in life itself. We just never seen anything like this before. And I know a lot of times we hear people say, oh, the kids don't want to do anything. And I will say, I don't think it's not they don't want to do anything. I think the lack of opportunity or access to opportunities and recreation is an issue. So it's other than them sitting in front of a screen or on their phone. What else do they have? There's really nothing else. We have places we can go to a playground and we play. We don't see kids on the playground like that, especially the young adults. We just don't have the things. They don't have what we had growing up. So I don't really fault them at all. And even when you mentioned the school thing, yeah, it's when I first saw them, they looked like flash drives. So I would have never thought that's what it was at the whole time. So it's very easy to get over on someone, and they just make it easy for them to conceal. And once you start, it's a hard thing. And I don't think most people don't realize they're addicted to anything until it's too late.
Yeah, and it does look like a very harmless thing, but it's not. There's a lot going on inside, and I think that's a wonderful segue to bring our expert on. If you could stay with us, Marlisha, for a few minutes, and then we'll focus on Rich. But let's go ahead and bring Rich back in. Rich, thank you. I don't know if you were trying to post something or if Kristen was trying to get in.
I'll try to put something in there, but I apologize if I interrupted you.
Oh, no problem. I didn't see it. So if you want to bring it back up, just put it in and I'll pop it up again with it. But Rich, thank you for joining us. You're an expert regarding this. You've been working in this for a while. You've actually were in my show a few years ago talking about vaping. But Marlisha, do you have any questions of Rich while you're here? Anything you would like to hear from him?
No, I just want to hear what he has to say. So
very well, we'll start there. Thank you. Rich, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? I do have some questions, but tell us a little bit about what you do, and we'll just roll from there.
Well, first thing I want to do is thank Marlisha. People that are involved in a grassroots approach going after this problem are what we need. We need leaders in this country, not followers, not people who are going to post problems that we can't solve. But I appreciate people like her that want to get to the bottom of this and work from the ground up through community and make a difference.
All right.
Can't hear anyone.
Can you hear us? It's Coach K is joining us. Kristen is joining us. All right.
So I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you. We can hear you. You can't hear us. All right, Kristen, I'm going to back you out and we'll keep going and we'll figure this out. All right. Go ahead, Rich.
Well, what I wanted to discuss is this is the new face of organized crime. And a lot of parents and a lot of law enforcement executives, to include politicians, don't want to face the facts that these vape shops around the United States where these kids are getting it, that are supplying the communities, are just one symptom of a greater problem. These shops that are distributing these products are just destroying the community with pushing these things out to our most vulnerable and our most precious asset, and that's our kids. The majority of these shops, as we look at analysis and work with law enforcement around the country, these products are being manufactured in China by Chinese organized crime in a place called the Xinjiang Valley, and then it's distributed to the United States, to warehouses, and then to these shops. If you look at the vape problem at its face, almost 9 out of 10 of these products that are coming across that are designed exactly like you discussed are flavored products with cartoon characters or designed to entice young adults. And the Chinese government right now is making close to $300 billion a year on the backs of our community, going back to organized crime. And I think that's the most important thing we need to make sure that we address is who are the people behind it, who are the criminals, how are they distributing it, and how is it getting into the hands of our kids? Because that is our greatest resource and our greatest asset. And the last time I took a look at any type of bipartisan discussion, China was our greatest threat to national security. And that's why it is so important for Marlisha and community groups to contact their politicians, get on their schedule, explain to them how much money these criminal groups are making and how they distribute these products into these stores where they're just so dangerous. From last year, from January 25th to January 26th, we began to do an analysis, and my group is called the Tobacco Law Enforcement Network. That's posted in the group chat. But we did an analysis of the type of criminal activity when law enforcement begins to take an initiative to go after these shops. And in the last year, there's been over 500 arrests, almost 300 guns recovered, a large amount of illegal narcotics, tens and tens of millions of dollars of trade-based money laundering assets, and they're run by criminal organizations. These aren't the tobacco shops years ago in which, your grandfather would buy a cigar or somebody would get their pipe tobacco. They're just another tool for organized crime where our poor young adults are going into, and they're also getting these synthetic narcotics. They're getting these synthetic hemp, synthetic gummies, THC, Karoom. So it's part of a larger criminal network that needs to be addressed, but we need a full court press. It's not something that we can just do from one level. It needs to be the police, the community, the politicians, and getting money out of the 202 area code here in DC to be pushed to communities for demand reduction strategies to help these young adults get away from these products.
Rich, you've opened up a world of questions now. See, we knew we got you talking, and some questions are going to come up. So this is organized crime putting these products in the United States.
Correct.
And they're literally producing them, putting them on ships, and they're going into these stores that we've been seeing pop up in the last 10 years like crazy, like weeds. These stores in my hometown, Georgetown, it's like that was the fastest growing business for a while. They were popping up all over.
And the majority of them are selling this criminal contraband, these illegal vapes. And the numbers are staggering. 9 out of 10 of these products are illegal. They're in violation of federal law. There's a small percentage that has been manufactured by industry for tobacco harm reduction. For adults, it's an adult product to get them away from smoking. But everything else, we don't know what's in some of these Chinese products. Fruity Tooty Skittles. I have one right in front of me here that I want to show you. It's Elf Bar Watermelon Ice. Here's another one. Mike Tyson has his own brand of peach melon. But they're all manufactured in China by criminals, and the end result is our poor kids. And
go ahead.
No, and that is what's the most important thing to understand, that it's a far greater problem that we need to address. Like I said, and one of my favorite expressions is the full court press.
So this is naive of me, I will admit that. Are the owners of these stores aware that these products are illegal and they're just ignoring?
Yes, many of them are complicit because the amount of money that they're making. And that's the sad part. When you look at the amount of money, when I talk about this, hundreds of billions of dollars a year, they're complicit in the criminal activity. But there's just not enough resources to go to every vape shop. Because Marilyn, you brought it up in the last 2 minutes. They're sprouting up like weeds.
Mm-hmm.
And what we really need is to get money for people to go out there and inspect these places and shut them down. Many of them know there's just not the resources, the time, nor the consistent apprehending strategy to go after these individuals. Very quickly, I'll tell you a story. I was yesterday in Illinois, and I visited 5 different shops with a cup of coffee in my hand because I was doing a presentation to a city council and a chief of police. And during the course of walking into the shop, one of the guys told me, as he pointed over to these illegal products, these are the ones I keep in for the kids. These are the ones that we want the kids to, buy. So they're well aware that they're criminally complicit in this behavior, but we need to just move swiftly and strict adherence to the laws and push them out of commerce.
So there are laws already on the books, but they're not being enforced. And they're not being enforced because maybe lack of funds with the law enforcement to hire more people, because we all agree they are sprouting up like weeds.
Well, this is the sticky wicket.
Okay.
And the difficult part when you talk about loopholes. If a state doesn't have a registry, because every one of these products that we're discussing is illegal by federal law, but many states and local municipalities cannot enforce federal law. So what needs to be done is a registry needs to be put in place by each state to identify those products that are registered for tobacco harm reduction and the other 90,000 that are illegal. So it can give local law enforcement, state authorities, compliance authorities, licensing authorities to go into these shops and to shut them down, to take their license, to put them out of business, to fine them for all this criminal activity. And in some cases, if they're selling illegal drugs, in possession of guns, or they're wanted offenders, they need to go to jail.
We're joined by Coach K, Rich, and I want her, because she's a coach. So Coach K, tell us who you're a coach of. I understand from Alicia, you have a lot of contact with the kids, and I'm listening to what Rich is saying. What are your thoughts about what he's saying, what you're seeing, and are you getting some answers from what he's saying and maybe connecting, like what can we do to get these kids some help?
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Marilyn, and thank you, Rich, so much for sharing a lot of it, because I was appalled to see. I've seen 2 of those before, the Elf Bar and the Mike Tyson one, when I was teaching. So a little bit of background about me is that in Beaufort County, I worked for about 6 years in the county as an educator and as a coach. And now, as a retired educator, I work as a health and wellness coach for my own brand called Hillsis and Courtesy Care Life Consulting. And also a part of the community with Marlisha Robinson, a part of Project Freedom and the Juneteenth Scholarship Initiative we have for our young kids here, and that ages 4 to 25. And that kind of spearheaded because in 2023, I had kind of gotten to a point where I started to see this epidemic along with other factors that kind of go hand in hand, from social media to the illegal products that I started seeing being brought into the school. And there really wasn't a discipline matrix for handling that. It was I literally came into school one day, saw a child blow a vape in a administrator's face, and they just told them to put it in their pocket because there was nothing that could be done about it. And this was on the district level because of the concerns, I guess, wanting to treat it as an addiction issue, which it is. However, what we started seeing was that a lot of kids were now having complications in school. And my last year teaching, one of my students, we didn't know that she had even the contraband on her, but she ended up coding. So she ended up having to be rushed to the hospital because she went into an issue with her breathing. And we're seeing that a lot with some of the children that have been experiencing and using these vapes, and then even hiding them from the adults around them that
Yeah.
they know will do something about it. And so it's something that even a lot of the parents weren't aware of. Even her own mother wasn't aware that she had access to this, because what they'll do is they'll hang them in the bathrooms and like swap it with each other. And there is really no enforcement of not selling to kids in this area. So we're in Burton, and there are probably about 4 smoke shops within a 90-foot radius of each other. So they had put one up. So like if you go down by, of course, the gas station, and then there's one in like the Cross Creek Center and things like that, and then all the way to Port Royal. So it's kind of like hitting every neighborhood within our school district. So, well, our school area, not only the district, because I can't speak for Beaufort and St. Helena, but specifically in the Burton Port Royal area. And so what we're seeing is a lot of hidden things, almost like a second life, because they're doing things even on social media where they would videotape themselves be doing all these smoke tricks and kind of making it cool. And parents don't really take social media as important, and they don't realize this is their version of peer interaction. Whereas I'm a millennial myself, so we had at the beginning of my high school career, kind of like, well, the end of my high school career, Facebook and things like that, but it was nowhere near the monster it's become now, where people can hide things and have private accounts. And so we saw that the vaping epidemic was really in hand with those social media epidemics that we're seeing. So my question for you, Rich, is how do we make our communities and parents more aware of this? Especially, I don't know, since I've left the district, if they changed that discipline matrix about how they handle vaping and drugs on campus. But I am kind of interested in learning how we can make our parents and community more aware of, hey, pay attention to what's going on, because this is something that a lot of parents aren't even aware of. Because I would always say, they'd be like, never my child, and here the child is never like
Okay.
never before.
Well, that's a great question. And one of the things that our organization has, the Tobacco Law Enforcement Network, is a multitude of different disciplines of different people that provide resources and assets to us and also to you. We have agents that are law enforcement agents, former detectives, school resource officers, and a school counselor. Specifically, what the school counselor does is she, along with the school resource officer, have developed a plan that they teach around the country on you cannot discipline your way out of this, okay?
Mhm.
Because it's very, very hard. It's like going after the people that are addicted. You cannot go after the
Exactly.
addicts to chase the drug problem. So we can't go after our children to discipline them out of schools or out of their ability to succeed academically. But what we can do is work with some form of succeeding model is kind of the best way to put it, in which they can succeed by admitting, or once they get caught, working with the school resource officer or the counselor to identify the shop outside the area in which is the what we call the tree that's dropping the fruit. Now,
Hmm.
it isn't say that we don't punish them or they're not punished with some of the principles we work with, but we make it easier for them to maybe take a 3 hour class or an hour class with the counselor, or spend some time on learning about demand reduction, getting away from using it and what it's does to yourself. But in addition to reduce them having any punishment, to identify those dirty shops. And then the school resource officer, being a sworn law enforcement officer, passing that information down to his colleagues and going in there and disrupting the market environment. Just like you were saying, taking out those 4 shops, seizing their license, arresting the offenders, looking for other forms of criminal activity. And that seems to be a much better and much more successful program than trying to discipline your way out of this thing where you're going to write referral after referral, or
Right.
and that does nothing. That just it goes back to the parents that my kid got in trouble and nothing's happening. What we need to understand is, how do we work with them? How do the counselors can talk to them?
Right.
How they can even bring the parents in and talk to the parents, but take that information to stop how these kids are getting it. And that's a model that seems to be working and working very well. I say, many times, these shops are like the old crack houses. They have guns, they're a ton of illegal money that they're not paying taxes on. They have other narcotics. We would never allow those on our streets and in our community. So why are we, in some instances, in some of the townships and villages and counties and states, allowing these places to have licenses? So that's what we need to be pushing back on. If you're going to sell these contraband vapes, if you're going to be involved in the trafficking of illegal activity, you are not going to get a license in our community.
I think part of it, Rich and Coach K, is people see those bright, colorful stores and just assume because it's bright and colorful that it's not harmful. It's not only psychological for the kids, it's psychological for the adults also, that you could not imagine something that had candy colors and bright colors could be harmful to your community. Now, if it was someplace with dark lighting, stuck in a corner somewhere, quote unquote, in the bad neighborhood, people would be up in arms. It would be
absolutely,
but now it's literally right in the open. The one I literally live across the street, a neighborhood, the grocery store, and it's right next. It's the Chinese restaurant, the liquor store, the vaping store, and the grocery store, all out in the open, and the big picture windows. So you just walk by, you don't look in, and you don't really study it and understand the harm that's being peddled to our children. So it takes education. And thanks, Rich, and both of you.
A ton of education.
It does. It really. So what can the schools do? I know it's a prevention thing, and I do agree with you, Rich. When punishment's not going to work, because then it becomes that mysterious thing that, because that's human nature. You deny me something, I'm going to run to it, right? But it's going to have to take education.
And absolutely, and that's what we try to deliver, free of charge. Coach K and Alicia, look, take down this website. Reach out to us. You can put your name in. We will contact you again. But tell us what your needs are, and we'll try to put you in touch with the right people, or have a Zoom call. We do it right now. We're very active in the LA Unified School District, where we do what we call teacher education days, where they come in for an hour on Zoom, and we go over just what we're doing here. What are the issues? What are the problems? What are some successes? What are some failures? But get them up to speed to what the problem is, because we're not doing ourselves any good any other way. And I say this in frustration, where we've tried to talk to news organizations that this isn't sexy, we're not interested in this, and they don't want to do anything surrounding what we're talking about. So it becomes important that we have conversations and people brave enough, like Marilyn here, to step up and get the message out.
Are you aware, Rich, of the bill in the South Carolina Senate S-287 to enforce the distribution of vaping into our communities?
Yeah, and I 100% support it. As you can see, my passion and my knowledge base on this, and the people that work around me, I support any type of legislation that, anywhere in the country, that will provide a registry for these illegal stores to be put out of business or to put together a strategy to go into these locations, taking their licenses and shutting them down, and then providing funds. You have to educate the kids, you have to educate the parents, but giving them monies in the communities to put together strong programs to teach. It's very similar to Say No to Drugs, but it has a very strong enforcement component. So I'm all for it.
So yeah, that just passed, I believe, out of committee on in the Senate of South Carolina. So that's a good thing. Would there be any reason why an elected official would oppose regulating this vaping?
I think some of them are misinformed, Marilyn, and and I think Coach K will agree. They don't understand the complexity to the problem or the organized crime angle, and they look at it through a financial lens that we're going to put some of these businesses um, out of work. We're going to take, you know what I mean? We're going to take them out of the community. But when you look at that, 9 out of 10 are involved in criminal activity, and you take a look and listen, go on our website or you go on our Twitter page and you see, the reality. I think the majority of a smart politician would agree with what we're having to talk about this afternoon.
Because they're already breaking the law. We just need to enforce the law. But by them literally selling an illegal product, they're already breaking the law. And y'all, I do hear an echo, and I don't know why it started. I turned down my phones and stuff, so I don't know if y'all need to turn down the phone or something on your ends. But it sounds as if we just need to make some calls locally, make sure our school districts are educated about the harms, and start some type of educational program to educate our children about the harms. You're seeing it happen, Coach K. What are your thoughts? What do you think could happen on the local level, encouraging folks to call? What are your thoughts? You talked about the harms. What solutions? Have you thought about any solutions?
So I totally agree about educating the masses, because the issue that we saw the year that I was leaving teaching was the year that the new discipline matrix was issued. So no one really knew that this whole vaping issue was as prevalent as it was, because we were only about a year and a half outside of being fully integrated into schools. So I think that creating programs and partnering with schools and partnering with the school resource officers to educate about what these actually are, because especially adults who are quitting smoking and use vaping tools to, kind of wean that nicotine addiction, they're not even aware that some of the things that they might be buying are illegal in that case and then being sold to children. So having, like, for example, when Rich held up the Mike Tyson and the Elf Bar, we've seen posters of that in the gas station. When you walk in the gas station to get a Sprite, like, you see the poster already there. So knowing what is credible versus what's not credible is very important. And that's something that, as a communications educator, was the primary emphasis that I was trying to, scream from the mountaintops, is that when you have social media creating a image and a mirage for not only children, but also the public, the general public, and it's all a part of marketing and branding, that kids and adults don't take it as seriously as they need to. They can't see past the illusion of it being safe or harmless or colorful, like you said, Miss Marilyn. So I think to counter and just support your point of creating those educational programs, and maybe just having some type of infographic where you can see, like, these are not actually in our country. They're not legal in our country. And if you see them, then these are the people and places that you can contact to make people aware that they are selling illegal contraband. Because I think that, in this case, ignorance is not bliss. It's actually causing some harmful consequences. And educating ourselves on what to look for is going to be the primary thing that brings us the results that we're looking for.
And not only is it the colorful look, the taste that's diabolical. that
Yes.
the flavor is candy flavors, fruit flavors, things that appeal to young people. So they really are thinking about this marketing. You know, it's
Right.
not like by accident at all. They are really
Right.
deeply thinking about it. Yeah, I think education is the way to go. Just to let everyone know, at the bottom of the screen, please go to the website. We've been scrolling it for quite a while now. Take note of that, and we will certainly make sure that's on our website and our social media. And of course, they're on X, formerly known as Twitter, has at Enforced Tobacco. So go right now, go later and get more information. Rich, this is where you can get information. Can you order posters and things like that on these websites?
Everything is 100% available to anybody that wants it, from training to some of the things that we have on there. Like several months ago, we built what we call the virtual vape shop for parents to go into and click on various things and talk about various cases. It also displays what products, what is regulated and what is illegal. It's a plethora of information that is open to anyone that wants it. You know, there's no proprietary. It's going to cost anyone anything. We're blessed with some great partners, so we're able to build this thing and have the right people to help you in the right situation. Because I don't want this to become like crack cocaine did. And this is what I mean by that is we came to the dance way too late. This is an opportunity to get in front of an epidemic and a problem. Let's get in front of it. Let's come up with a strategy and let's begin to deal with it right now rather than when it's too late. So that's a big part of our law enforcement. You know, we came up during those days. We want to make sure that we do something with lessons learned, and this is our opportunity.
I agree. And just here's some other pictures of the vaping products looking like highlighters. Just stuff that's what gets me, the very intentionality to appeal to our children. Rich, is there any research being done? I know this a fairly new product, quote unquote. It's been here, I think, maybe long enough. What about long-term harm? We're talking about, you know,
Yeah. And you know what? I can say two things that I know very well as law enforcement and baseball. One thing I'm not as a doctor, and I cannot tell you about studies nor qualify what is even in these products, other than we know they're non-regulated and the FDA's come with an opinion that they shouldn't be sold and they're illegal. But no, I don't know that, and I wish I could, but to give you an answer would be unfair.
so you don't know it, but that doesn't mean that there aren't any studies out there.
No,
You
there
mean
could be some, but that would be,
yeah.
something, you'd have to get, and I would recommend somebody with a medical professional background to begin digging into those things, whether it's
Well,
your health department, whether it could be as simple as, somebody at your school, a parent to drive things through. But it's just not something we touched upon because we don't have the expertise.
very good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just thinking in terms as an adult. Thank you for the information about what we can do. But I'm also thinking in terms as an adult, and I hate to put a number on this, but it's a cost to families more directly now. People like Coach K, Marlisha, seeing the harm being done. And as society, we are failing those families. We're failing those children. But if we got to put it in numbers, long term, I suspect it's going to harm society long term. And here's Coach K is back long term because we're going to pay a cost in long term health consequences. I'm hearing depression in the children now. That society is going to pay a price, and that's going to be too late. Like you're saying, lessons learned from things
Yes.
before need to be
Well,
applied.
And I would love Coach K to jump in on, but our school resource officer talks about back in, when they were writing the referrals and taking the kids out of classes, or they were so addicted that they were so disruptive. So after COVID, when we had to work to get our kids up to a higher education level because it diminished so much, that the education process has been hurt. The classroom is not as effective because so many of these young adults are addicted and have to get it, or they're vaping in class, that presents a problem within itself.
And that's exactly what I saw. That's exactly what happened. You hit the nail on the head, Rich. And it got to the point where a lot of educators, like myself, were kind of forced out of the classroom because it's hard to battle addiction when you are certified to teach. And so it kind of puts a damper on, stopping the educational process. And we saw that those addiction needs were not being met because they are sitting in class for hours now versus, the chunked education that they experienced before. Because in Beaufort County, we had a hybrid system when we were virtual. So our kids weren't in school full time. We had if your last name, for example, is from A to H, you would come Monday and Tuesday. We shut down for Wednesday, virtual day, and Thursday and Friday, the preceding last names. And so it was more of an integration into that. And it really did well for our students. However, other factors came into play. Our county had voted in 2018 for a referendum that would um, renovate all of our schools. And the school that I was at was the school last on the list, but because it needed the most renovations. So in 2021, by the time the governor forced us to break those hybrid models and go back full time in the middle of COVID, we had 800 students, one hallway, two bathrooms, and no cafeteria. So there was also a safety issue that we saw with the kids. And we had warned them about that, we're dealing with teenagers here. Teenagers are the most at risk to cope. And I'm the smallest. I look like a teenager myself, so I could kind of eavesdrop into conversations that you wouldn't necessarily hear if they already felt that presence in the room or noticed me in the back. But you can tell that a lot of the ways that were working for them being taken also affected our community in a disparaging way that made them feel like they had to, disassociate just to be present. And that was
Yeah.
the irony that we saw, was that everyone else was complaining about, what the kids are taken away from school and not being here full time. But when our children were forced back full time from that hybrid model because of their situation being that they didn't even have a school to go back to, it became like, okay, do you really care? Do the people in power really care about us and our community and our education? And if they don't value it, why should we? And you start seeing those self-destructing behaviors. And because I practice cognitive behavioral therapy techniques in my coaching, it was something that I was able to recognize early that sometimes you can miss, especially with teenagers, because they can be so gloom and doom all the time anyway. But when you add at the same time is influencing them and making them feel other ways of inadequacy. And now you're seeing smoke shops pop up, and then you're seeing just the people around you, the adults around you, you feel don't really care about your well-being. You see that domino effect, and that's how we ended up in those children, ninth graders, taking substances that they don't really even know what they're putting into their body, and parents that are completely unaware because now they're on the hamster wheel as well.
You're so correct.
I'm
Sorry,
so
didn't mean to
glad.
unload there.
Look,
I love the
Got a little
passion.
toxic.
yeah, this is where you need to unload. Let me see. Yeah, wow. Well, this is so true. Thank you, PPR Publishing. This is so true. I mean, this is where we need to hear it, though. This is where we start, and it shouldn't even be starting, but continuing the conversation. But we need to start blowing this up. And every time, I'm sorry to say, it's so much going on in this world right now, and we do understand that. But our children truly are our future, to quote the song.
Yes.
And
And
to
if I can
know,
just add one more
yes,
thing.
please do,
So
please do.
I was at that school and district from 2018 to 2023. So I got to get the full in-person experience before the virtual years, the virtual and hybrid years, and then the full in-person years after the effect. And I can tell you for a fact that
the school I was working at during those virtual years, because literally the month before COVID hit, our principal had spent all of our educators in our school and the community learning about Google Classroom and all of the tools that we needed to use. We didn't know COVID was going to happen. So when COVID happened, when all the other schools around us shut down because they were used to functioning in a community capacity, our school went to the top during the virtual years, in the hybrid years. So much so that the school I work for ended up winning the 2022 Lighthouse Stephen Covey and Leader in Me Award. And I won the National Virtual and Hybrid Teaching Award of 2022. So when we saw that shift, and the parents in the community didn't want it that way, they enjoyed the hybrid system because it was kind of like a work study program for our kids, especially since most of them, we're in a Title I area. So a lot of our high schoolers also have to contribute to their households. So it created space in a work-life balance that the middle to working and lower income class hadn't experienced before. So when they were hit with, okay, now you guys are being forced back into school all at once without the resources, without even a building.
Yeah.
It created, what do people, addiction, the basis of addiction is coping. I know that as a child of a former functioning addict, that was my childhood. And so to see that happened to these kids in this community and it didn't quite recover in that way, it's kind of hard because people want to blame COVID, but I lived on the opposite side of that, the success side of COVID, in a community that we're now outperforming the private and the charter schools. And so the governor and a lot of his other supporters saw that and saw that as a threat. And now it created, okay, if you want us to finish our school and you continue to receive the state funding to finish your school, you cut this hybrid model out that you guys are doing and the federal grants that are providing you to provide the technology and the instruction and the things to keep the environment safe. And that was the trade-off that our administration made. And it created those coping mechanisms that I not only saw an uptick in students, but also the community and even some of my fellow staff members with coping with, okay, now we have to be in these close quarters, one functioning hallway for 800 kids in 2021 is wild. The federal mandates weren't lifted. And so we see that coping happening. And then this is, what do people that are in corporations do? They are able to now come in and prey upon a community that is trying to rebuild itself. So there's no coincidence that now all of these shops are popping up, that all of these things that are now here to soothe that itch have popped up, because now you're not dealing with the actual issue of opportunity being taken away, being established, being seen, being honored and recognized, and being punished and taken away. And so now how do you deal with that? You cope.
And vaping becomes a tool to
Yes,
that
because it's
cope.
easy access to get to. Yeah, it's 2024. You can't go out there and I mean, you could if you want to go out there and buy crack, but it's easier when you literally, oh, I'm going to Walmart right quick. The vape store is right here.
That's exactly it. And these synthetic narcotics that are being sold at these shops are being replacing street dope. And they're given a license to. That's what drives me absolutely crazy, that they're being licensed by these communities without the right people going in and just taking a look at what is available to our community and our kids. I was blown away when I saw all these synthetic narcotics that are quote unquote legal that these kids have access to. Some of these gummy worms and CBD candies and Caroom and Delta H, all of them are derivative synthetics of the real stuff that are being sold over the counter. We have to stop it, and we have to go after these shops, because the vapes, like I said, the first thing that came out of my mouth, these vapes are a symptom of a greater problem with organized crime, destroying our children, and just tearing apart our quality of life from A to Z.
And because we're not invested in the solution as a society, supporting our law enforcement and enforcing the laws that are already in book, providing education, providing uh, uh, um, the addiction, treating the addiction. We just can't beat up on these folks. They truly
Yes.
are addicted. So we've got to make that investment. And we know our mental health system is not even close to where it should be. So as a society, we need to make some serious decisions because
And the
not
things that
only,
work,
go ahead.
stay committed to that and stop allowing people in power to bully us around when it comes to what we know is best for our kids and our communities.
That's
Because
right.
that was
Talk to
something
the
that we
parents,
saw
talk to the
firsthand.
teachers,
Was
talk to
that
the local police. You're right.
Well, very good, y'all. This was so good. We went beyond our hour. Um, and I'm not treating this lightly at all because this is a conversation that is much needed. So I'm going to put this out here. Marlisha had to, she locked up, then she had to leave us, but was trying to make it back on. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Coach K. Rich, once again, it's always good to talk to you, even with a serious subject. I learned so much every time
It's
we
been an honor.
get
Thank you.
together. Yes. So what we're going to do, I'm going to just issue this invitation to both of you to come back down the road. We're going to keep an eye on what's happening with this bill in the South Carolina State House. This is a conversation that does need to continue. And more information. And I implore, please, folks, we got an expert who took his time today to share with us. We have an educator and a mother who really just shared their stories, what they're literally seeing on the ground right now, the harm that's being done. Watch the show again. We are going to repeat this show 4:00 this coming Wednesday. But go to the website. It's coming back. It's been scrolling on most of the show. www.enforcetobaccolaws.com. Get educated, download the information, share it, get organized, and start advocating, as Coach rightfully said. Keep being consistent on the work that's being done now. Go to the website, get more information, get more education, because we really need to make this happen, folks. Our kids are just target. They're the target, and we can't just have this anymore. We've got to stop. We just got to stop this. But we're going to have both of you back along with Marlisha one day. So keep your calendars open. All right. I'll be back in touch and everything. And thank you, Rich, for joining us. And thank you, Coach K. We'll be in touch and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you, ladies. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mary.
Beat that drum. Beat that drum.
We certainly
We'll talk
will.
soon.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Thanks to Rich, Marlisha, and Coach K. I just loved it that we really got into it. Thanks, y'all, for visiting us with us today. We just restarted last week, a gathering place, rebuilding. Love that everyone is tuning in and asking about what's going on. This is for our community, the Gullah Geechee community and beyond. We have folks that tune in from Arizona, Philadelphia. They just reach out and say, hey, we want you to come back on. So we decided, let's just make it happen. And as soon as I put the word out, folks start contacting, hey, we want to be on. So we're going to have book talks. We're going to have authors on. We're going to have politics talk every third Sunday at 4. We're going to talk politics. We're going to have authors come on talking about history. And it's just wonderful that we decided to restart it. It's Black History Month. Let's make this happen. And I want to make sure next week, I'm so excited about this. We're going to be joined by Joshua Mishu, creator of Camp Geechee, and that's the coloring book right there. But this is an illustrated book based on the folklore of the Gullah Geechee and our African ancestors. I am so proud and delighted for this young man. He took a course from an entrepreneurship course with the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce in Bucksport, the Bucksport community in Horry County, South Carolina. That's his home. He came and it just clicked with him. He was doing the work, and he will tell anyone. So I'll just say this, and he may say it when he comes on next week, that, I asked him, why don't you focus on your culture? we have such beautiful stories, exciting stories. He accepted that challenge. It clicked with him, and he has never looked back. And I'm just so proud of this young man. So we're going to have him come on because he has a Kickstarter campaign happening right now. And I'm going to bring him on to talk about Camp Geechee, but also about the Kickstarter campaign. So thank you for joining us today on The Gathering Place, folks. We are so excited to see you next week at 4 o'clock live with Joshua Mishu. We're going to talk about Camp Geechee and the Kickstarter campaign. And this Wednesday, don't forget, this show that you see today is going to repeat at 4 o'clock next Wednesday. This has been a great show, very informative. Keep your eye on Senate Bill S-287 that's going to enforce illegal vaping coming into our state. I'm getting that under control, and we need to get behind that, folks. Thank you. And y'all, have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll see you next week.